We are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us this evening for our Cumberland Family Academy workshop. Cumberland Family Academy is a Cumberland County Schools initiative. The Cumberland Family Academy is committed to enriching the lives of children by bringing parents, guardians, and schools closer together as equal partners. When families have high expectations for children and encourage them to work hard, they support and promote a child's academic, social, and emotional well-being. The purpose of the Family Academy program is to provide families with the necessary tools to support the success of their child's education. This evening, our workshop presenter is Christy Newitt, Cumberland County Schools Counselor Coordinator, and Reed Rizzolo, recruiter from Fayetteville Technical Community College. Again, thank you for joining us for Cumberland Family Academy, and I am turning it over to Christy Newitt, our Counselor Coordinator, and Reed Rizzolo, our FTCC recruiter.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name is Christy Newitt, and I am the Counseling Coordinator for Cumberland County Schools. Basically what that means is I help supervise, or partner supervision of all the K-12 school counselors. I was a high school counselor myself, so this was the perfect topic to kind of put out there and help you all as you navigate the process. And I'm going to let my partner, Ms. Reed Rizzolo, introduce herself.
Good evening. Thank you so much for letting me join you tonight. As they mentioned, my name is Reed Rizzolo, and I'm a recruiter at Fayetteville Technical Community College. I work with the 9th through 12th graders to help them through the admissions process and help them know what Fayetteville Tech has to offer. So I'm here to answer your questions tonight as well.
So as we get started, the objectives for tonight, so what we're going to be doing, you just had introductions, we just went over guidelines, and then we're going to what do I need to know. So we're going to walk through some different areas, the interest and skills, looking a little bit at what your 2-year versus your 4-year options are. How do you prepare for some of those tests? How do you even afford it? And then kind of a closing out, some resources that might help you, and then providing that question and answer as well. So as Ms. George just reviewed the guidelines, we ask that you place your computer on mute during the workshop, that you sign in by placing your name and school that your child attends in the chat box, and any questions be placed in the chat, and we will make sure that we answer those at the end of the workshop. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So under that what do I need to know section, we're going to cover all 5 of these areas. So high school graduation requirements is that first big one. Then we're going to just talk a little bit about how those interests and skills may apply to making that decision, and that goes as early as elementary. I don't know if we have any elementary parents on here or students on here, even middle school, but it goes as early as that. We're going to look a little bit at that post-secondary education and career path and how that equals a career path, looking at the 2-year versus the 4-year education, and really emphasizing that one is not better than the other. It really comes down to what do you want out of a career, your test prep, how do you prepare for it, that funding, that financial aid, and trying to understand that process, and then just some invaluable resources, and then it'll be your turn. So I'm going to... Yes.
One second, please. I'm sorry. Always technology has a little glitch. If you don't mind, can you close out, stop sharing your screen and pull it back up again? I think someone wrote on the screen mistakenly.
Yep.
So can you pull it back up again, and we should be good to go?
No problem. Is that better?
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're going to first talk a little bit about high school graduation requirements. This will help you not only for planning after high school, but just while your students are going through the K-12 education process. It's always helpful to know, what am I required to have? What do I know that I must be able to be successful with? So I'm going to open up a link to our high school course selection guide. This is something that comes out actually every year for high school as well as middle school. And just to put a plug in, we do have a future seminar coming up this spring in February around the whole scheduling and selection of classes for both middle and high school. So it's just a little early plug for that. So I'm going to scroll to page 8, which is where we're going to get to graduation requirements. It's a very big guide, this one. It breaks down all the different conversations about classes and things like that. But here are our graduation requirements. So we are under the Future Ready Core pathway. As you can see, there are 4 credits of English that are required. So English 1, 2, 3, and 4. That could be honors, that could be standard. And then at the level 3 and 4, that's when your AP English language and your AP English literature come into place. Under math, they require 4 credits. So NC Math 1, NC Math 2, NC Math 3, and then a 4th option. That fourth option really depends on what your career plan is. If you want to go on to that 4-year university, it needs to be more of an advanced math. Something that's more advanced than NC Math 3. If you're looking to potentially go get a trade and that advanced math isn't required, then it might be that we're able to replace it with one of our CTE courses that fulfills the math requirement. For science, we require physical science, biology, and earth science. However, chemistry or physics can replace that physical science requirement. AP Earth Science can also replace the earth science requirement. For social studies, we have 4 credits required. That would be world history, American history 1, American history 2, and civics and economics. I will say these are changing for the future. We're still in the waiting for the state to give final preparations on that, but for our graduates from, let's see, our seniors, juniors, and sophomores, your requirements are the same. It's our freshmen that things are changing on, and anybody beyond our freshmen. So we'll just speak to the current sophomores, juniors, and seniors in terms of those requirements, and those are those 4 classes I just mentioned. If you decide that you want to take AP US History, that does replace American 1 and 2, but you would have to get a 4th social studies elective, like another AP course or a psychology or a psychology honors. At one point, we're going to get to talking about the College and Career Promise program that Reed is going to discuss, and she can talk a little bit about the History 131 and 132. Those are the FTCC classes that can count as a high school graduation requirement for that American 1 and American 2. Surprisingly, world language is not required to graduate. However, just like that 4th advanced math, if your student is looking to go to a 4-year college, they are required to have 2 years of the same foreign language. So usually something that the counselors look to do is provide that foreign language opportunity anyway. A, it helps our students become more globally aware, learning a second language outside of English, but B, it also lets them have that plan B in case they don't think they're going to go to a 2-year, but then they change their mind last year. They're not having to, squeeze in a back-to-back foreign language their senior year. Health and PE is required 1 year. They can take PE after that, but they are required to take health and PE. And during that time, they'll also be getting their CPR requirement. They'll learn how to do the chest compressions. And that is also a state requirement in order for them to graduate. And then they get 6 electives. So 2 electives in any combination of career and technical, so CTE, arts, and world language, and then 4 additional electives. Those are your state requirements. And then Cumberland County requires 6 additional credits to get us to a total of 28 credits. So it's really those elective classes, but also some of those elective cores that really can head you towards what your pathway might be. So depending on what your interests are, which we're going to get to in a second, really would help you navigate your high school planning and what courses you might want to take based on maybe what you want to study, based on the career you want to go into. So that's kind of how understanding the high school graduation requirements comes into play, but also then when selecting those courses that you're going to get enrolled into. So those are our graduation requirements. If you do have questions, feel free to put them in that chat box, and we'll be happy to answer them at the end. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. Move my screen. Okay, so what are my interests and skills? So here's the big question. How do my interests and skills really lead to an effect for how do they impact the planning for college? One would think, well, you know, that shouldn't matter. Does that matter? How does that matter? So one thing that we are really trying as the counseling department to really get out to students, but also parents, is it's really important to know what you're good at, what are you strong at, but also what you're interested in. I saw this quote, you know, some of this idea somewhere out there that said, most of our life is spent working, so we might as well enjoy it. So basically the idea behind knowing what your interests are can really help determine what classes we need to take in high school, but also as early as middle school. That's really where those elective classes come. So for example, if you are somebody who is really interested in, let's say, engineering, you would want to make sure that you get yourself into some of the, you get yourself maybe into one of the academies that leads towards engineering. If you are interested in collision repair or some sort of mechanic, you know, automotive type thing, you would want to make sure that you find the high school that can provide those classes for you. If you know that you are really interested in going on and maybe doing something within the medical pathway, well, that's where you'd want to make sure you're really challenging yourself in your math and your sciences, that you're taking those AP chemistries, biologies, that you're trying to do pre-cal and calculus, and that you're getting some of that rigor, those rigorous classes within the math and the science area. You may even take an anatomy class to make sure that it's something that you're interested in. We also have academies around the health pathway. So basically, it's just helping you determine your interests can help determine, you know, what you should do. And, you know, the biggest thing is also making sure that you're selecting a pathway, the student is selecting a pathway that leads to what they want. I've seen it a lot of times where a student feels like, well, my dad or my mom or my guardian does this, so I think I'm going to do it too, but it's really not what they're interested in. So we really want to make sure that starting as early as elementary school, that we're really having conversations with students about what do they like, what are they interested in, what could they see themselves really wanting to do. And then having a skill set can help lead you to success. If you know you're good at something, then you tend to do better with those things. So finding an area that you're good at. So I knew I was not the strongest math student. I knew I was not going to go on and do anything really with math. I get queasy with blood. I knew doctor was probably not the best option for me. So just trying to figure out what your skill set is. And then, you know, remembering that once you are in a career field, sometimes it is hard to change, and it's really important that you choose wisely. So I found some statistics out there I just want to share dealing with how many college graduates actually change majors, as well as how often career changing is happening. And I try to find pretty recent up-to-date data. So this is on the Best Colleges website, and they did a survey. And they saw that over 82% of degree holders think college was a good financial investment, but that 61% of grads would change their majors if they could go back. That 26% of all degree holders would change majors to pursue their passions, and that roughly 30% of millennials would change majors for better job opportunities. There's a quote here: if schools could help, you know, students align their majors with their ideal career paths rather than just emphasizing graduating on time. So once again, that is something we are starting to do within Cumberland County. We're going to get to that point where I talk to you guys a little bit about major clarity, but really trying to align what students want to do based on the classes they're looking at within high school to take. And here are just some reasons that they're saying that graduates are saying they want to change their majors. They want better or more job opportunities. So as the economy is changing, as the world is changing, obviously some jobs are kind of disappearing and some other jobs are strengthening. So being aware also of job opportunities, anything within that STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math is really growing. Computer science is really growing. So just knowing that. Some people just want to get paid more, or they want to have better benefits. So that's another thing to look at is, you know, how important is the earnings versus what you're doing. Personally dissatisfied with or stressed out or burnt out. Wanted to learn more in-demand skills. But as you can see, the biggest one is I want to pursue my passion. And that comes back to what am I interested in? What do I like? What am I good at? So just to kind of share that. And then the next one is, okay, once somebody's in a career, then what happens? How often are we changing jobs in a lifetime? And this one, if I can get my mouse to work, see. Trying to see if I can find the exact thing. But basically, yep, so these are the reasons people are changing jobs. So similar to majors, why they're changing jobs is seeking higher pay, better benefits, relocation to a different geographic area. So even knowing where you maybe want to live also sometimes determines what jobs are even out there. Career advancement, choosing a less stressful job, changing career focus. You guys can read this. So just having a general idea of what do I want in life will really help with the how do I plan to then get a career, which usually leads to that post-secondary education. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the 2-year versus the 4-year college, and I am going to turn it over to Reed, and she's going to talk to you guys a little bit about that 2-year experience, from the why choose it, what is it, to maybe the difference between it, and any other things she wants to add, and then I will be back for the 4-year college conversation.
Thank you very much. So as you know, there are 2-year colleges and there are 4-year colleges, and really depending on what career you want to go into, that may direct you one way or the other. The 2-year colleges offer certificates, diplomas, and associate degrees. They also offer college transfer programs. So even if your long-term goal is to go to a 4-year school, you can still start out at the community college getting your 2-year degree, take all of your general education classes, and then transfer over. So more and more nowadays, we're seeing students coming out of high school going either to the 2-year colleges and then straight out into the workforce, or transitioning into the 4-year school after they get their associate degrees. From what I've seen, it really is a nice transition for students who are planning to go to a 4-year school, because it gives them a lot of one-on-one attention. Even though at Fayetteville Tech we have a lot of students, we have around 10,000 students, our class size is small. On average, about 25 students per class, rather than the hundreds of students that you might find in a large university. So coming from high school, and you know those first 2 years of college, it's a big learning curve, and they're learning a lot of study skills and how to be self-motivated. And the community college really helps prepare them with those skills. We also have an open door policy. So for someone who might not have a high enough GPA to go directly to the 4-year school, or maybe they didn't take the classes that are required to get into the 4-year school, our open door policy for community colleges allows students, anyone who has finished a high school diploma or equivalency, to be accepted. We give you a chance to start at the community college with a clean slate, a fresh GPA, and it is an opportunity for you to then start fresh. We have the cost. I know that's a biggie for a lot of people. A lot of people are choosing to go to the community college because the cost is just far less expensive. I don't know, you've probably seen the cost out there for some 4-year schools. You can look at anywhere from, say, $15,000 to $75,000 per year to go to college. The community college system for in-state tuition is only about $2,500 per year. So even if that's just your freshman and your sophomore years of a 4-year degree, you're going to save a lot of money. going that, choosing that option. As I mentioned, the college transfer degrees do allow you to take your 2 years of maths and sciences and English, all the general eds. And then once you get to the 4-year school, that's when you'll focus on your major courses. So for a lot of students who in high school aren't really sure what they want to do, what career they want to go into, by taking those general ed classes, it kind of buys them a little extra time to make that final decision, because typically no matter what you're going to major in, you're going to need the math and the English. So you can do that with Fayetteville Tech. There's a high demand. So we're talking a lot about the going to the 4-year school, but for someone who really isn't interested in going to a 4-year school, maybe their interest is to get right out into the workforce as quickly as possible. That's really the original goal for the community college, was quick workforce development. And so we have programs that you can finish in 1 year, programs you can finish in 2 years, and then go out, get a job. The demand is oftentimes very high. Most of our students are finding jobs very quickly, and the salaries are surprisingly high. I didn't realize there are plenty of people out there that after getting a 2-year degree are making a lot more money than a lot of people who have their master's degrees make. So there's not necessarily a correlation there between the length of time you've been in school and what your income will be. It starts students out on the right foot, because the cost to attend the community college is far less expensive, and many students are getting financial aid to help pay for that. We have a lot of graduates who are potentially 20 years old, going out into the workforce, starting out with salaries in the $50,000, $60,000 per year range, and they have no student debt that they have to pay back. So that really is a great way to start their futures, and I really highly recommend that if it seems like a good fit for you. As a recruiter, one of my jobs is to help people through the admissions process and to offer campus tours. We can go visit different programs. We have over 250 different programs that you can choose from, ranging from business, medical, arts, sciences, engineering, and so a lot to choose from, IT. And we have our unique program is the funeral service program. We're the only school in North Carolina that offers funeral service. So if you ever wanted to talk to me specifically about our programs, I will provide you with my contact information. But I do want to let you know that the 2-year college is a wonderful option, and I hope you'll consider it.
And I'm going to click really quickly. I think I connected us to the, yep. So this is just a website that's off of CFNC, and it kind of talks a little bit about what Reed was referring to. So just kind of gives a general, so we're going to talk a little bit about CFNC, but there are 58 public community colleges within North Carolina. FTCC is our home Fayetteville City Community College, but if there is a program that maybe FTCC doesn't offer, there are other community colleges within the North Carolina public school system, or public school, the North Carolina public university system and community college system. And then I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the articulation agreement between the community colleges and the UNC system, where if they do attend one of the community colleges, they have a guaranteed enrollment, not necessarily to the school of choice, but to one of the universities.
Yes, part of one of the agreements that we have with the public school system is that if you go into a college transfer program with the community college, and that would be either the associate in arts, associate in science, or associate in fine arts. And what's going to determine that is what your future major is going to be. Whichever one of those you go into, as long as you complete it with an associate degree, you will have admissions into one of the 4-year UNC schools. All of the classes are transferable into the schools, and We do encourage you to talk to whichever school that you want to go to make sure that you're taking the classes that they require. For instance, this is an example I always use for Fayetteville Tech's perspective. If we require a humanities to graduate from Fayetteville Tech, you might be able to pick from a list of 15 different options, but maybe the physical therapy program at East Carolina University needs for it to be a specific humanities. So it's great if you can keep that four-year school in the loop when you're making the decisions, but all of the classes that you take through the transfer programs will be transferable into the four-year school. We also have C-STEP. So if your goal is to go to UNC Chapel Hill, we have a partnership with them specifically that allows you to do 2 years with Fayetteville Tech. And if you are part of the C-STEP program, you get automatic admissions into UNC Chapel Hill during your junior year. You don't have to compete against the thousands of other applicants. And then we have partnerships like that with some of the other four-year schools too. ECU, UNC Pembroke, depending on what your major is going to be, we do have agreements where we can basically do like a dual enrollment type of program, 2 years with us, 2 years with them, and get your four-year degree that way.
Okay, perfect. And then just to emphasize or to reiterate the piece about the transfer, if you all do the, if it's one of those things where you take the college classes that go towards a four-year degree and you decide not to go to a UNC school, the biggest thing, just like Reed emphasized right there, was making sure that those classes will transfer and not just count as credit, but actually count as some graduation curriculum requirements as well. So just understand that if you do decide to do the 2 years and then college transfer out, that if you go outside of that UNC system, that there is a chance those courses will transfer over as credits towards graduation, but they may not count towards a graduation requirement under like a humanities or a math or an arts or an English. So just something else to be aware of, but that's why they have advisors at FTCC or any of the 2-year schools to make sure students are supported. So that's the 2-year pathway. 4-year colleges. So liberal arts colleges versus universities, that's, that's a big one. So the liberal arts college is basically the focus of the liberal arts school, whether it's a university or college, really does focus on things like classical themes and objectives. The goal is not necessarily to have somebody come out with a specific skill or trade in something, but it can happen, but more to, as you can see, challenge their beliefs, make them more critical thinking, that idea of philosophy almost, poise them to become global citizens, know how to have a conversation in like a seminar setting where someone challenges a question and you're able to debate that back or have a point of view, and develop the students in that realm. You also have then your agriculture and mechanical or agricultural and technical colleges and universities. So this would be something like NC State or North Carolina A&T. There's Texas A&M. So those schools are actually, and there's others throughout the county or throughout the country, but they actually were founded originally through the government, through land grant-based programs where they were created so that individuals who had more of like an ordinary means, farmers, that kind of thing, were able to get that higher education, but more of a practical nature. And so it helped kind of create a commitment to higher education in that service to the public. So it wasn't just those wanting to talk about philosophy and the classics, but hey, I know that I want to really do this. I'm a farmer, but I know that I need to learn a little bit more. What can I do to advance my line of work? So they're based on land grants, and a lot of that funding is coming to them from federal or state, and a lot of it is to expand the science and the research in those areas, but particularly farm productivity. And just like every other career, technology is advancing it, and so it's allowed it to grow. And that's really where the agricultural and technical, or the agricultural and mechanical curriculum is focused. So unlike the liberal arts, you're going to come out really with that specific, trade skill around that area that you're looking at. And liberal arts, you can, you know, you can come out with a business degree, you can come out with an education teaching degree, but somebody like myself, who was a psychology major, I had a phenomenal education. I loved my psychology courses, but I knew that I was going to have to go on to get a master's degree in order to do anything with that psychology degree. So that's kind of the difference right there. And then the question necessarily also comes, do I go public as a four-year college? Do I go private? What do I do? And really that comes down to, they're both great options, but it really comes down to a few things. So one is the funding sources. Public is mainly funded by the government. So, you know, that's going to be your federal or your state funding, while private is going to be funded by private donors, student tuition, which is sometimes why you see the tuition rates are higher, or some sort of endowment fund. Therefore, you know, depending that's where the costs now come into play, right? So the public schools, because they're funded by government, they're able to have that tuition be lower. It also is usually, there's a public system like our UNC system where the schools aren't allowed to raise their tuition by a certain amount. They have to get permission to do that. Whereas private, they can raise it. It's how they it's the tuition from the students is how they make that money back, and how they can afford it. But the difference there also comes into the aid purpose. So although private can be more expensive, they also tend to have more opportunities to provide tuition assistance and funding, because that funding isn't coming from just one spot, it's coming from multiple. The other thing to remember, public out of state is very similar to private anywhere, because the out of state students don't earn the same tuition. So I chose one outside of the North Carolina, just so you guys could see it. So the University of Virginia is an excellent university. It's one of the best public universities in the country. If you're a Virginia resident, you pay about $15,000 in tuition per year. If you go to Virginia out of the state, you're paying about $49,000 a year. So that right there also may help you see the difference of, yes, public universities are great, but we have a phenomenal public system in our state. So if you're going to go public, it might be better to stay in North Carolina. But then again, you know what, if you can find that school of your dreams and they're going to be able to help you get what you want, and you can find that funding source, which we're going to talk about next, then you go for it. I traveled I'm from Pennsylvania, and I went to a school in New York, and it brought me to North Carolina, and I have not left. So sometimes we make choices that just work out. Okay, test prep. So to go to a four-year college, you have to take an entrance exam. There are some schools that are waiving them, but the majority are still making students have an entrance exam, and that would be the SAT or the ACT. The SAT is put on by College Board. ACT is its own entity. The ACT is actually given, it is the North Carolina statewide test, and it is actually given to our juniors in the spring for free. We also have our sophomores take the pre-ACT, the PACT, their sophomore year, usually between October or December, to help prepare. But the SAT has the PSAT as well to help students. And actually, during the junior year, if you take the PSAT and you score high enough, you could be in the running for a merit-based scholarship that would basically send you to any school of your choice for the most part for free, 100%. So definitely one test is not better than the other. They have they're built differently. So I'm gonna click this link so you can kind of see it. So this brings us to a summary. So as you can see, the ACT measures skills in English, math, reading, and science, reasoning. The scoring is from a 1 to a 36. And what I have heard is they claim to provide test questions and the test itself to be more similar to what students are used to in terms of their standardized testing and what they're learning on and how they learn now. The SAT, on the other hand, measures critical thinking skills using questions in 2 categories from evidence-based reading and writing and math. Both actually tests have the writing component. Some schools want writing, some schools don't. If you're not sure, I would recommend taking the test with writing. That way you have it just in case. And then the possible score range for the SAT is a 400 to a 1600. There were a few years there. If you have any, if there are some parents here with older children, at one point it did go up to a 2400, but it is back down to when I took the SAT, which is back to a 400 to a 1600. Both tests, if you qualify, you can get a test waiver for, but like I said, because the state of North Carolina has selected the ACT to be the state sponsored test, all juniors get the opportunity to take an ACT for free. Okay, let me see if I can minimize my screen here. Okay, back to the presentation. Okay, and then I'm going to have Reed jump in real quick, and I know some of the things have changed, but there once upon a time was a community college placement test called the NC DAP, but there are exceptions now, so I'm going to have Reed talk to you a little bit about that for those students that are interested in taking going the community college pathway.
Thank you. So yeah, currently for testing, if you have graduated from high school within the last 10 years, there will be no testing required. What we're going to look at more so is your GPA. And as long as you graduate with a final GPA of at least 2.8 or higher, then you will go directly into the college level English and math. You don't have to do any testing with the community college. For some of you out there, for parents that it's been more than 10 years, we do offer the NC DAP. It's not required. You can just choose to go into some transitional English and math classes, which will kind of help refresh you and help build that foundation so that when you do get into the college level English and math, you will be successful. So that is an option. NC DAP, we offer it at Fayetteville Tech. It's free of charge to take that test, and it really is just kind of to see where you stand with your English and math skills. For the current high school students, the ones that have graduated within the last 10 years, if you don't have the GPA of 2.8 or higher, then you will start out in the transitional English and math classes. Those are just some pre-curriculum classes to help build a good, strong foundation. Depending on what program you go into, you may not be required to take those college level Englishes and maths. For all associate degrees, you're going to be required to take some general education, but oftentimes, like with our trade programs, the math that they take is specific to whatever field they're going into, welding, for instance. So it's not like we just require you to take college algebra for the heck of it. You're going to take a math class that really ties in with the career that you're going into. And a lot of people really prefer that when they see why they need to have those skills. But yes, testing is not, SAT and ACT are not required at the community college level. And from what I understand, if you graduate with a 2-year degree and then transfer to the 4-year school, then they also are not going to require the SAT or the ACT. So they're going to be looking at your grades, your GPA, and how you did at the community college.
Yep, that is correct. That is another benefit of starting off at a 2-year and transferring to a 4-year. So before we get into the paying for college, I just want to quickly summarize all that we just threw at you. So what it really takes to prepare and plan. So the first thing is knowing what it takes to graduate from high school. So what classes do I need to take and pass, but also understanding that it's important that you pass them at, that you do the best that you can do, that you're turning your homework assignments in, that you're attending school, you're paying attention, you're learning how to take good notes, you're learning how to have a rigorous conversation with higher thinking going on, and you're paying attention. So getting through high school is kind of your first step. Obviously, A's would be great. A's and B's are, are just as good. But you know what, sometimes we have that class where we make a C or we make a D, and we did the best that we could do. Colleges sometimes would rather see that you put yourself in that rigorous setting than you making straight A's in all standard courses. So with that, starting those conversations early, and like I said, as early as elementary school is fine, and really having some conversations around, who am I? What do I like? What am I good at? What am I interested in? How do I learn? And really starting to understand yourself and identify that as you're getting through that, from elementary to middle to then eventually high school, and making sure you're in classes that are going to go towards that pathway. Then it comes down to, okay, so this is what I'm interested in. This is what I'm good at. What does this mean? How can I really, what does that set me towards? So then it's the conversation of, do I want to go and potentially get a 4-year degree where I come out with either, I go to a liberal arts school, or I go to maybe one of those agricultural schools, and I come out with a bachelor's degree in something that could lead me straight to the workforce, or I may be able to go on and get more education, a master's degree, a PhD, an MD, something along those lines. Or do I know that I really like to work with my hands? I'm really fascinated with this part of life. I want to go on and I want to get a trade, and I want to put my energy that way. So your HVAC people, your welders, your auto mechanics, beyond great professions that we need in this world, making phenomenal livings, coming out with a 2-year degree. So figuring out that part. And then, okay, what do I need to do to prepare for that? So what is it going to take for me to apply? We just talked a little bit about the testing. Now we're at the part where, how do I pay for it? So there's 3 different options. The first thing, is just talking about understanding is the financial aid piece. So basically, financial aid is money that is given or borrowed to help pay for college. It's usually federal, state, local, school, or private funding sources. My parents on here, if you have a senior right now, I can tell you there is more money out there that is not used because students don't want to write essays. Encourage your kids to just write an essay, to just apply. I tell you, there is millions of dollars that go unused every year because students don't apply for it. Grants are usually coming from a federal or a state source. Usually you don't have to pay them back. However, there are the occasional thing where, for example, there's teaching fellows that's slowly coming back in the state. If that says, if you are a teacher fellow, we're going to give you this money as this grant, but you have to say that you're going to come back and work in North Carolina for 4 years as a teacher. Well, if the student does not finish their end of the bargain, then they would be required to pay back whatever they owe based on the years of experience that they put in with that deal. But for the most part, Pell Grants, things like that, they're going to be free sources of money that are not paid back. Similarly, their scholarships are the same way. A scholarship is not something that you're going to have to give money back for. It is free money to help you go, but there are more varieties of funding sources. So there are federal and state scholarships, but there's also private ones. There's local ones, and there's school scholarships where the individual school will offer something. And they tend to be merit-based, where you've earned it on your academics. So you did this, and this is why you're getting this. But it could also potentially be athletic, if we have any athletes. And then sometimes we do have need-based scholarships as well, where they look at the income of the family and they are able to determine that there's some help needed there. That's usually how some of the grants are awarded as well, need-based. And then the last thing are loans. Everybody tends to shy away from the loan conversation, but in my opinion, school loans are not the worst loans to have. They help you build credit as long as you are paying them back when you do get to pay them back, and they help you get to your end goal. I took loans out, and it was a journey paying them back, but I'm fortunate that I had the opportunity to do it, and I was able to get my degrees with it. So basically, a loan is something that you are borrowing and you are paying it back, and you're paying it back with interest. Usually you are given a little bit of a grace period between the time you graduate and you hopefully get that first job before you have to start paying it. They're also really good about working out payment plans, that kind of thing. I'd say the traditional loan, usually you have 10 years to pay back, but they do work with you, and they're usually coming from a government source. I will say FAFSA is the website, the entity in terms of you should really do for all, but it's the financial aid. Now, of course, I'm not wanting to remember. So financial aid for.
Is it federal application?
Federal application for yes, thank you. Federal application for student aid. So that, there's a link to their website in a second, but that is basically how you apply. They're going to require information like social security numbers, your taxes from the previous year, just to really get an idea of what the family income level is like and what your need base is. They'll give you an estimated income number based on that. But even families that are thinking, well, there's no way we're going to get anything, I can tell you there are schools that have those special scholarships that your student won't even be in the running unless you complete that FAFSA. So we are really trying to encourage all of our students to do it. You heard Reed talk earlier about community college students having the opportunity to get financial aid. I know there are even some other types of technical schools. So if we have any students that are interested in doing hair care, barbery, or sometimes that collision, and there's some of those private industry like the Paul Mitchell, or the UTI, the Technical Institutes for Cars. A lot of times those programs are now offering financial aid too. The interest might be a little bit higher, but I know that they're doing that as well. So just something to really stress is filling out that FAFSA form. And you can talk to your counselors about this stuff, but State Employees Credit Union tends to offer assistance, and some of the local universities will actually offer assistance as well. If you go to their financial aid office, they sometimes have FAFSA days where they help students fill out the FAFSA. And this is also something that you would do each year. So not just when you're applying your freshman year, but every year you would be applying for student aid, for financial aid. So that's kind of as simple as I can make paying for college broken down. That's probably as simple as I can get it. Reed, do you want to add anything to that?
That was wonderful. The only thing that crossed my mind is that the FAFSA application is open right now for the term goes August 2021 through July 2022. So you can go ahead and apply now. In fact, from what I understand, some of the funding is first come, first serve. Yep. So don't put it off. Go ahead and get your application submitted. They will require, if they do require tax information, it would be based on last year. So you've already done them, you have everything that you need. And the folks in our financial aid office at Fayetteville Tech are willing to help you complete the FAFSA, even if Fayetteville Tech is not the school that you're going to come to. So take advantage of their expertise. You can come meet with them face-to-face in the Tony Rand Student Center. Oh, and we also have a presidential scholarship. That application will be coming around January. And that scholarship is just for high school seniors to apply for. It's for $2,000. And that covers, by itself, that covers almost your whole year of tuition. You are allowed to get multiple scholarships and multiple sources of financial aid. I've had students say to me before they thought they could only get one. But no, you can piece it together. You can get a little bit from your church, a little bit from your employer, some from Fayetteville Tech, and a little bit goes a long way at the community college.
Perfect. Okay, so just some invaluable resources to remember in terms of what's there. Your school counselor. So if you have not met your school counselor, I know we are in a different world right now with virtual, but they are very much still there for you guys, still out there. They have virtual offices now. They have their own Canvas courses. So reach out to them, get to know who your school counselor is, because they are a wealth and a plethora of knowledge. They can help you from the selection of the classes and determining, looking at your academics and having that conversation with you to, okay, where will this lead me to? And can you help me with this? They are your resource for scholarships. Many of them have created their own scholarship newsletters, that kind of thing. So your school counselor all the way down to elementary school is that go-to person to really help you with this. That's the fafsa.ed.gov. That's that federal aid website to go to. I will say there is one out there that is a scam. So if you get there and they make you pay $60 to do the application, you are on the scam website. Don't do it. You want to be at fafsa.ed.gov. College Board, which is just collegeboard.com, or ACT.org. Those are your test prep sites. And then CFNC.org, you saw me flash a little bit for. That is a platform that is specifically targeting North Carolina. So they do the college month of October, where they even have a week where certain schools within the state waive their admissions fee and have our students apply. But they also have all sorts of different resources around planning for high school, planning for college, and that's 2-year or 4-year, and then how to pay for it. So they provide a lot of nice resources that are out there. And then Major Clarity is a platform that my department and the Career and Technical Education Department of Cumberland County Schools has partnered with. And basically all of our students that are in 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, we are slowly creeping it in, have access to, and it allows them to take some of those interest inventory surveys, their skill level surveys, how do I learn surveys, and then from there they start to be able to put together some sort of career pathway, and then they get to start to learn about those careers, from what does it take in terms of the education to what could have maybe a normal day look like, how much money, that kind of thing. And then it's also connected to Power School, so they're able to be plugging in their courses so that they could be kind of setting that plan, that 4-year plan of what classes do I need to take based on these careers that I'm heading towards. So just another invaluable resource that's out there. And that is the end of our presentation. So